Hello everyone, I am Arena International Master Rishikesh Chavan. Welcome back to Shaolin Temple. Today we are going to discuss a few important lines in Yugoslav variation of Sicilian Dragon Defense. Sicilian Dragon Defense is a famous defense. It is commonly played throughout the world. So let's start. E4, C5, NF3, D6, D4, C into D4 and into D4, knight F6. This is the starting position of Sicilian defense. So यहाँ पे अगर black plays something like A6, so this can be Sicilian knight off defense. But आज हम dragon defense के बारे में सीखने वाले. So we'll continue with knight C3 and G6. So यहाँ पे white खेल रहा है bishop E3, bishop G7. नाउ अगेन यहाँ पे वाइट के पास दो मेन ऑप्शंस है. एक तो वाइट कैन प्ले बिशप E2 और बिशप E2 खेल के सिसिलियन ड्रैगन क्लासिकल वेरिएशन में वाइट जा सकता है, या फिर दूसरा ऑप्शन है टू प्ले F3 एंड दिस F3 वेरिएशन इज कॉल्ड सिसिलियन ड्रैगन युगोस्लाव वेरिएशन. So in this Yugoslav variation, both the players castle on the opposite side. So black will be castling on the king side, whereas white will be castling on the queen side, and both the players will start attack against each other's kings. So it's a very complicated or very sharp variation, we can say. So let's continue. F3, castles, queen D2, knight C6. Now here white can play long castles or even he can play bishop C4. So sometimes white यहाँ पे पहले long castle करता है. So उसका reason ये है bishop D7, bishop A2. white को ये bishop थोड़ा late बाहर निकालना है. So इसका रीजन मैं आपको बताता हूँ क्यों बाहर निकालना है. Because as white black will start his attack through the open C5, black will be playing moves like knight E5 and then he will be playing knight C4, and then black wants to exchange his knight with this strong bishop. Now why this black's bishop is strong or black square bishop is strong, because जैसे कि आप देख सकते हैं white's E3 का bishop is the only piece which can exchange this dragon bishop over here. So वाइट का प्लान रहेगा कि फ्यूचर में आगे बिशप H6 खेले एंड बिशप H6 खेल के ये स्ट्रांग जो बिशप है ब्लैक का उसे एक्सचेंज कर दे. सो ये स्टॉप करने के लिए ब्लैक का प्लान होता है कि नाइट E5 और नाइट C4 खेले, एंड वंस द नाइट कम्स टू C4 दिस बिशप्स जॉब इज टू कैप्चर द नाइट. So here white can keep the bishop inside so that it can capture the knight right over here, but it is not that strong. क्यों नहीं strong है मैं बताता हूँ आपको. So black continues with queen A5, king B1. king B1 का एक प्लान ये है कि C file से अटैक आने वाला है. So white doesn't want his king on this C file, so that's why he's moving it inside. One more idea is to protect this pawn over here on A2, so which will be under attack later on in the game. So one more idea over here is white is going to play knight D5. So knight D5 के बाद उसका प्लान है, if this knight is already on E5, then white will be playing knight into E7 check. So if after knight D5, if the king is on C1, then black can play queen into queen check. So as it's a check, white won't get a chance to capture this E7 का pawn with check. ये सब possibility stop करने के लिए white has to play king B1. So the game may progress like this. Knight D5. So here it looks like कि black का ये E7 का pawn free में मरने वाला है. If black wants to save this pawn, then maybe black को शायद ये queen D8 जैसा पैसिव मूव करना पड़ेगा, बट एक्चुअल में ऐसा नहीं है. black has a very good continuation जिसमें उसे ये lost pawn वापस मिलता है. So queen into D2. now white rook से कैप्चर करता है और बिशप या फिर बिशप से कैप्चर करता है, doesn't make any difference. So knight into E7 check, king H1 H8, rook into D2, and now black is pawn down. but here black will win back his lost pawn by rook f e8, knight d5. That is the only move for knight, otherwise knight is almost trapped over here. Knight into d5, e into d5, and then the correct move is knight f3, or you can say knight into f3. So here black is getting his lost pawn back on f3, and after the knight into f3 he will win back his lost piece by playing rook into e3. So as you can see, black ने अपना lost pawn recover किया है, and at the same time black is having this bishop pair over here. There are lots of open lines. One rook is already on the open file. The other rook can soon join him on the other open file. So black has a very good active pieces over here. So यहाँ पे knight c6 के बाद instead of long castle, white can continue with bishop c4. So bishop c4 के बाद black will play bishop d7. Black has to complete his development. Without developing the pieces, black cannot attack. लॉन्ग कैसल्स, नाइट e5 जैसे कि हमने अभी डिस्कस किया था, बिशप b3. नाउ ये बिशप के जो दो मूव्स वेस्ट हो रहे हैं, सो हियर बिशप प्लेड बिशप c4 and then bishop b3, and then later on he will capture the knight on c4 by playing bishop into c4. So basically white's bishop is moving thrice. So ये तीन मूव्स सेव करने के लिए इन द प्रीवियस वेरिएशन व्हाइट ने खेला था बिशप e2, ठीक है, बट यहाँ पे वो प्रॉपर खेल रहा है व्हाइट क्वीन a5. So here white can still play king b1, but then black will continue with rook f c8, knight d5, queen into d2. now यहाँ पे knight into e7 check is a blunder. ये बहुत बड़ा मिस्टेक है, बिकॉज आफ्टर किंग f8, पहले वाले वेरिएशन में किंग f8 मूव अवेलेबल नहीं था, बट ये वेरिएशन में किंग f8 अवेलेबल है. एंड नाउ द नाइट इज अंडर अटैक. White cannot save the knight because he has to recover the queen, so he has to capture the queen. So what he can do, he can sacrifice his knight for one more pawn by playing knight into g6 check, then h into g6, bishop into d2, and now as you can see black is piece up, और black को दो pawns के बदले में एक piece मिला है. Right now there are so many pieces present on the board, so दो pawns इतने इंपॉर्टेंट नहीं है, बट ब्लैक का पीस इज डेफिनेटली इंपॉर्टेंट इन दिस पोजीशन. सो दैट इज व्हाई यहाँ पे आफ्टर क्वीन a5 व्हाइट इज प्लेइंग h4. जैसे कि हमने स्टार्टिंग में डिस्कस किया था दैट बोथ द प्लेयर्स विल बी अटैकिंग ऑन ईच अदर्स किंग्स. सो यहाँ पे व्हाइट ने h4 खेल के अपना अटैक चालू किया है. rf c8. व्हाई ब्लैक इज getting this rook over here is because this a1 ka rook can be used on b8, and then black can continue his attack by playing b5 and b4. So that is why rf c8 is played over here. King b1, knight c4, bishop into c4, rook into c4. So we have reached a critical position in Sicilian Dragon defense, Yugoslav variation. So यहाँ पे as you can see both the players are attacking on each other's kings. So white's idea is to open this h file by playing h4, h5, and on the other side black will be using this open c file by playing moves like ra c8. So after rook into c4, white plays g4. He can directly play h5. So for example, let's assume he plays h5. So black has few options. So first of all, he can directly capture the pawn by playing knight into h5. Here white is sacrificing his h4 h file ka pawn so that he can open this open this file as quickly as possible. So knight into h5, g4, knight g6, and then nd e2. Now this nd e2 move is played for two reasons. First reason is later on black will be sacrificing his rook on this c3 square. So as you can see the queen is already attacking that square. This bishop will be attacking that square. So white wants to give some extra support to the c3 square. This is one plan. The other plan is whenever white plays g5, this knight is going to sit on h5, and this from h5 it will block the h5. So this e2 knight's duty will be to come to f4, or even if the rook is already on g1, he can even come to knight g3, and then from there he will exchange this knight off so that the h file will be open. So after nde2 rac8, black is lining up his pieces. Bishop h6 again. The idea is to exchange that strong bishop. Now, in this Yugoslav variation, if white wants to checkmate black king, he must exchange, or he must remove these two pieces. These two black pieces are very important pieces in this variation. They are attacking pieces, at the same time they are defending pieces. These two pieces are defending the whole white attack. So if white wants to checkmate black king quickly, he must exchange these two pieces. अगर ये दोनों में से एक भी पीस अगर अपने अपने स्क्वायर पे रहता है, then it will be very difficult for white to perform checkmate. So here black has a very nice continuation. He can play bishop into f6, queen into h6, and then he is playing bishop e6. The idea of bishop e6 is to stop this knight d5, because black is not going to move this knight on his own. So white has to exchange this knight, and the easiest way to exchange that knight is by playing knight d5. So now, because of bishop d7, this knight d5 move has no purpose, because black will capture with the bishop, and this f6 ka knight will stand on that f6 square. So black can still continue with knight d5, and then we have bishop into d5, rook into d5, and rook 8 c5. So here few pieces are exchanged, but still black's attack, or white's attack, is far away from this checkmate spot over here. This knight is standing in their way, or in his way, and there is no way to remove the knight. Even if he plays like g5 over here, black is going to play knight h5, and then maybe white will have to sacrifice his rook over here. On the other hand, rook into c2 is a very good move for black, and then both the rooks with the company of the queen. Here black can think about giving a quick checkmate to white king. After h5 there is one more variation. Black can straight away sacrifice on c3, so rook into c3. One very important point: if you are playing Sicilian Dragon defense, you will have to sacrifice your rook for the knight. This is called exchange sacrifice. So most of the time in Yugoslav variation, black will have to make this exchange sacrifice, so that he can create some weaknesses around white king. Then only there is a chance for black to win the game, or even to draw the game. Otherwise, if he is not going to sacrifice anything, white's king will remain safe, and it will be very difficult for black to save his game, because on the other side, as you can see, the attack is already started. So after rook into c3, b into c3, knight into h5, g4, knight f6, bishop h6. Again the same thing as I said just now. These two pieces are important pieces. White has to remove both the pieces. He can remove this bishop easily by playing bishop into g7, but this knight will be a very tough piece to remove. It looks really difficult for white to remove that knight. So after bishop h6, white can continue bishop into h6. Here after bishop h6, sorry, black can even play bishop h8, so that way he can preserve the bishop, and that way it will take more time for white to launch his attack, because he is not able to exchange these two pieces off. So bishop h8, then maybe game may continue like this: knight f5, bishop into f5, g into f5, rook c8. So black is pressurizing this pawn over here. Sorry, f into g6, h into g6, bishop f8. Bishop f8 is a mistake. Here white is hoping to checkmate black's king, but it's not happening because of rook into f8, rook into h2 check, king into h8. So here white has sacrificed a piece, but black can defend well. So the queen h6 check, king g8, and after rook h1, black can finally play knight h5, and this h file is blocked, and there is no way for white to open this file. So black's king is totally safe over here, and now black will start his attack on the queen side, and later on either he will give checkmate to the white king, or he will win with his extra piece. So bishop h6, bishop into h6, then we have queen into h6 over here, and then queen into c3. So again, as you can see, both the players are trying to get to opponent's king quickly. So दोनों के क्वीन एक दूसरे के किंग के नजदीक पहुंच गए हैं, but white's king is kind of open. There is no enough defense around the king. On the other hand, black's king looks totally safe. There is this strong wall in front of the king, and at the same time, this strong defensive knight is still there. So white's attack is kind of stopped over here. There is one more option. After bishop into h6, sorry, white can try queen into rook into h6. So here white is trying to keep this extra pawn, or white is trying to save this pawn over here. But then again, black has a very nice continuation: bishop into g4. It's a sacrifice. Sicilian Dragon defense, Yugoslav variation is mostly about sacrifices, sacrifices, and sacrifices. If you are playing Sicilian Dragon, then you must be good at sacrifices, and you must be good at calculations. If you are not good with calculations, or if you don't like to sacrifice the piece or pieces, then it's better if you don't that you don't play Sicilian Dragon. So bishop into g4, f into g4, knight into e4, queen is under attack, queen d3, and here knight c3 check, king b2, and now after knight into d1 check, black will get back his sacrificed rook, queen into d1, and white is still piece up. White has that extra knight, but for that extra knight, black has 4 pawns. So if we just remove both the queens and rooks from this game, then it's easily one endgame for black, because these 4 extra pawns are too much to stop for that alone white king. So maybe we can play queen d5 over here, queen d2, rook c8, and these all remaining black pieces are active. And now white has lot of problems to solve. His knight needs support over here. King is in the open. There is no enough support around the king. The rook is stranded in this corner. Even queen has very less squares to move, and there are no pawns in the in white's position which he can use for attack, or even he can use those pawns for king's defense. So this is rook into c3 variation we were checking. There is one more move after h5. Black can play rac8. So instead of sacrificing the rook over here, black can play it a bit calmer. थोड़ा शांति से वो खेल सकता है. So rac8 के बाद we can have h into g6, f into g6, bishop h6. Sorry. Knight into e4 again. This is a very important sacrifice. Now knight into e4 के बाद as you can see, the e4 knight is under attack. this bishop is unleashed from this g7 square. If white accepts the sacrifice by playing f into e4 or even knight into e4, then there will follow queen into d2, rook into d2, and then black will win back his lost piece by playing rook into d4. Now in this whole combination, black got a free pawn, that is he got this e4 ka pawn for free. So if knight into e4, then queen into d2, rook into d2, and rook into d4. If after knight into e4, after knight into e4, if white plays queen e3, so queen is trying to hold his center, is trying to hold his pieces in the center. Then we have knight into c3 check, b into c3, rook into c3, queen into e7, bishop into d4, rook into d4, queen b6 check, king a1. Black will pick up this rook over here, queen into queen into d4. So here, as you can see, all the white's attack is gone, and on the other hand, black's attack is very strong. For example, this discovered check is very strong over here, so white has to be very careful. He cannot even capture the bishop. If he captures the bishop, if he plays something like queen into d7, then he will lose his queen after rook c7 check, and the white's queen is lost. So again, this is a very good combination for black. So here, instead of h4 or h5, after rook into c4, instead of h5, white can play g4. So he is thinking g4 will give him added support on the h file. So now after h5, black won't be able to play knight into h5. So this is a good thing for white, but the negative side of this variation is that white's attack is bit slow. White has invested a move in that g4, so that way his attack is kindly slowed down. So let's see what we can play over here. So rook c8, again we'll continue with the same idea of pressurizing the c file. Knight b3. Here white can even try knight d5, but then we have queen into d2, rook into d2, knight into d5, e into d5, b5, h5, a5. So black will simply exchange pawns over here, and now again it looks like black's king is alone on this side, but this g7 bishop is doing a brilliant job of defending his king. White cannot play bishop h6, or he cannot even play rook d to h2, otherwise he will lose this knight on d4. So white has to be very careful over here. If he tries to support the knight by playing c3, then black will continue with b4, and then attack will roll over. So knight b3 can be played over here. Also, after rook c8, white can try playing h5. So after h5, the game may continue like this: rook into c3. Here there is a sacrifice again. Bishop into g4 can also be played. So after f into g4, rook into c3, h into j6, h into j6, uh, bishop h6. He cannot capture this rook over here, because say for example, if white plays pawn into c3 over here, then black is clearly winning after knight into e4. So after knight into e4, the queen is under attack. There is double attack coming up on c3 square, and it may follow with checkmate. So after knight into c3 check, maybe suppose king a1 or even king b2, then white will continue with black will continue with queen into a2 check, and it will be a checkmate soon. So that is why he plays bishop h6 over here. Knight into e4. Knight into e4 is coming any which way. Queen h2, bishop into d4, rook into d4, rook into c2. So here black is ready to give up his two rooks for the bishop. So he is hoping to get some counter attack over here, or even he is thinking about after all the exchanges were done. For example, queen into rook, rook into queen, king into rook over here. He can play this check, and he can think about picking up this rook for free. So bishop d2 is a good move for white. So he has saved his queen from this rook over here, and at the same time now white is going to threaten queen h8 checkmate. But black has a nice continuation to this. He plays queen e5. So queen e5 stop this checkmate, and at the same time he is attacking the rook, and he is even exchanging the queens. Once the queens are exchanged, then black is going to win easily because of his all these extra pawns. So that is why, of course, white is not going to exchange the queens. King f8, rook h8 check, queen into queen, rook into queen, check, king g7, rook into c8, rook into c8, rook into e4. Here, white recovered a piece, or white won a piece. But again, as you can see, there are a lot of pawns to deal with. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 6 pawns are there. So we can say it's material wise it's equal. White is having a bishop, and on the other side black is having 3 pawns, but all these pawns looks mobile. They are easily movable, so they will just start rolling, and then it will be difficult for white to stop all these passers over here. So we can say black has a slight advantage over here. So after rook rac8, we can even play nde2. So again, idea behind knight nde2 is white is expecting black to sacrifice his rook over here, and that way he is giving extra support to the c3 wala square. Once this knight is moved away, now this e6 square is available for black. So black is going to use that square straight away by playing bishop e6. Now whenever this knight is gone, we can see the attack coming up on this at a2 square. So white has to be careful with this. So suppose h5, rook into c3, knight into c3, and here black will play knight into e4. Knight into e4 is a very strong move. Here black, if white captures with the pawn, that is if he plays f into e4, then he is going to lose quickly after bishop into c3, b into c3, and then there will be a quick checkmate after queen into a2 check, king c1, and queen a1 mate. After knight into e4, he can't even capture with the knight, because if he captures with the knight, that is knight into e4, then there will follow queen into a2 check, king c1, and finally queen a1 check. So in all these lines, you have to remember few sacrifices. One, the common sacrifice is rook into c3. Then there are bishop into g4 sacrifice also. Then there is also knight into e4. There is a bishop into c3. So there are a lot of sacrifices coming up, and there are a lot of lines getting open. So here white plays knight b3. So this queen on a5 has to move. So queen goes to a6, e5. Again, the idea is to open this line, and at the same time, this square is empty, or square is vacated over here. So white can use this square for his knight. So maybe he can play something like knight d4 later on. Not right now, because if right now if he plays that, then rook into c2 is coming. Instead of e5, white can still try playing something like h5. But then we have again this bishop into g4 sacrifice coming up, f into g4, rook into c3, again this very common sacrifice, b into c3, and finally knight into e4. So we have sacrificed a piece, but in for that piece we are getting a lot of pawns. We got f3 pawn, we got e4 pawn, and now we are getting the c3 pawn also. So we are getting 3 pawns for our lost piece. So this is good trade for black. So after queen a6 and e5, knight e8. Here again, black can try something like knight into g4. So even knight into g4 is possible in such positions. So the idea is to play f into g4, bishop into g4, rd g1, and then d into e5. So again, for that lost knight, white lost his all the important pawns over here. So again, for that lost knight, black got 3 pawns. So material wise, it is balanced. But if endgame starts over here, if all the pieces are exchanged and endgame is going on, then 3 pawns against a piece will favor black. So knight e8, h5. So white has to push his attack home. Bishop into e5, h into g6, f into g6, bishop d4. So as we discussed, white has to exchange the dark square bishop. So he in previous variations he tried it from h6, but now he is trying it from d4 square. Bishop into d4, knight into d4, rook into c3. So sacrifice ये आने ही वाला है. So आने ही वाला in the sense, if you are black, so you must keep looking for rook into c3 exchange sacrifice. If you are scared or if you are not confident enough to make this sacrifice, the best advice is do not play Sicilian Dragon defense, because if you want to win games with Sicilian Dragon defense, you must be a kind of daredevil. You cannot just play Shanti say, or play simple moves like Rook C4 or anything. So B into C3, Queen B6 check, Knight B3, Queen C6, RHE1. As you can see now, there is not much left on the H file, because the queen can still join over here like with queen h2, but then black will easily defend that thing with knight f6. And again, there is no way to remove this knight from the defense of the h7 pawn. So that is why instead of using the h file, now white is trying to put pressure through the to that e5, e5, rook e3. So at the same time supporting the c3 pawn, d5, knight a5, queen a6. Knight is hanging, so white has to do something about the knight. Queen d5 check, king f8, f4. So here here white sacrificed the knight, but white is hoping that if black captures over here, then black king is we can say off the board. Black king is in the corner, and then he can execute his checkmate plans in the middle in the center. And you can see the black king is sitting up in the middle of the board. So after f into e5, d into e5, rook f1 check is coming up, and here white can think of giving a quick checkmate to the black king. So black has to be careful. Bishop into g4, rook f1, again a discovered check is coming up. b4. Now discovered check won't come, because if white plays f into e5 check over here, then black has this simple move, rook queen into f1 check, and the rook is lost. So that is why here white has to save the rook. He plays rook f2, bishop f5, blocking the f file, f into e5, b into c3, e into d6, queen b6 check. Now here in double attack, uh, black is getting this free rook, but it's not clearly a winning position for black, because even white will be getting this hanging rook over here. Let's see how. Knight b3, queen into e3, and then white has this strong move, rook into f5 check. Black must accept the rook, otherwise he may get checkmated very soon. So g into f5, queen into f5 check, and now as you can see, the c8 ka rook is lost. King g7, queen into c8, knight into d6, queen d7 check, knight f7. And now after all, nearly all pieces are exchanged, material is kind of equal. Black has one extra pawn, and that extra pawn is very strong over here. It's an outside passer, so it will be kind of difficult for white to stop that pawn. But it's not very easy for black either. He has to keep looking for all the checks. Queen g4 check, and white started giving checks. King f6, a3, knight e5, queen h4 check, king g6. Black must not lose that h7 pawn at any cost. That is the only winning chance for black. If he loses that h7 ka pawn, so either this game will end up in a draw. Mostly it should end up in a draw if black loses the h7 pawn. Knight d4, h5. Black started pushing his pawn ahead. King a2. So even white is trying to activate his king. So he played a3, and then now he played king a2, and then now he's going to play king b3, so that the king is active. King won't get checkmated in the corner, and at the same time, whenever it is possible, white will try to capture this pawn for free. Knight g4, queen d8, knight f6, queen d6, h4, knight e6, h3. Black keeps on pushing his extra pawn. Queen e7. White is trying to create some mating attack around black king, which is queen and knight, but clearly it's not enough, because there are a lot of open spaces around black king, and black king can easily run away. Even the knight is there to assist king. Queen f2, knight f8 check, king h6, queen f7, and queen into c2 check. Actually, this is a we can say blunder by white, because after this there is a quick checkmate. With queen into c2 check forced, white has to play king a1, and then queen b2 checkmate. Even if white would have played correctly over here, it looks very difficult for white to stop this pawn from getting promoted to a queen. So this is as good as lost position for black. So right now, I hope you understood whatever lines we discussed over here. There are few key points you have to keep in your mind. The first thing is you must start attack through this open c file, and you must use your dragon bishop, that is g7 bishop. If you are playing Sicilian dragon defense, and if white plays Yugoslav variation, black must attack. If black tries to defend his king side with playing some maybe h6 or h5, then it won't help. Whether he's playing h6 or h5, white is going to attack on black's king side. So making any moves on the king side in a hope to defend that part of the board won't help black. So black has to start his attack. Black's king will be safe only if black's attack comes first. That is, if black's attack reaches to the opponent's king first, then white will have to stop his attack on the black's king, and he will get back his pieces for king's safety. So there is that rook into c3 important action sacrifice also. Then we have seen very couple of few other sacrifices, like bishop into g4 is there. Then even knight into g4 is there. Sometimes you will have to play knight into e4 sacrifice also. So keep all these sacrifices in mind, and keep looking for the open lines, keep looking for attacking moves. If you are playing Sicilian Dragon, you must play attacking chess. You cannot play defensively, because in Yugoslav variation there is no space for defense. you can defend your king only by attacking. So as it is said, attack is the best defense. So you have to use this point in Sicilian Dragon Yugoslav variation. So I hope you like whatever we discussed today, and you must have enjoyed whatever we discuss, or whatever variations we see over here. I hope you like the video. So if you like the video, please press like button, and don't forget to subscribe our channel. We'll be getting more such instructive videos in future. So hope to see you soon. Thanks a lot, everyone.